Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Today's webinar will be talking about the new enhancements we have in our interface in SolidCAM 2018, as well as many of the new options that we have inside our 2.5D operations. Now, before I start, I just also like to mention that I will be working in a development version rather than the SP1 version. That's because there are some options that I will be showing over there that will be released in the next service pack, in Service Pack 2. So in order for me to show them, I will be working in the development version. Also, as usual, this webinar is being recorded, and it will be available later on today on the website under the reseller area. So let's actually get started. Now I'll start showing my screen, and I'll turn off my camera. Now, you'll note, normally when I start my webinars, we usually see me inside SolidWorks and SolidCAM already. This time, however, I'm actually starting with a blank screen, not just to show off my pictures, but to show actually the entire new feel for SolidCAM even as you start up. So what I'm going to do right now, and I'm going to explain this as I go along, is I'm going to click on SolidWorks to start it up. And the first thing I'd like to mention is as SolidWorks is loading now, and as you can see it's loading, something else is also happening in the background. SolidCAM, as it's loading, it's also opening it itself up. What does that mean? It means that the moment SolidWorks opens up, I can actually go in, and when I click on, for example, Tools, SolidCAM, Open, you won't have any delay. You'll immediately be opening up the parts. Notice you don't have to wait another 10, 15 seconds for the splash screen or anything else like that. Everything will start up much quicker even as you go along. Now, you may ask a simple question such as, what happens if you have a network license? Because with a network license, you may have 10 stations or 15 stations of SolidWorks, but only 5 licenses of SolidCAM. So does that mean every single time you open up SolidWorks, SolidCAM is automatically going to be taken? So for people on network licenses, what we have in the settings, and I'll show you that as well. If I go into my SolidCAM settings, we'll have the following. If I go into miscellaneous, you'll note that we have Start SolidCAM on SolidWorks Launch. That's checked off automatically. However, it is not supported for network licenses. I can always turn this off also, just to be sure, and this way it'll start off exactly the way it used to. Now, let's go a little further now into the actual changes we have in the interface. Now, one of the things that always bothered me and bothered many other people also as they were working in SolidCAM is that if you wanted to open up a part, you would always have to go to Tools, SolidCAM, Open. This was actually a very redundant movement that you always had to do over and over again, and it was always these extra clicks, and that was kind of bothersome. What we've done now is we've taken advantage of the SolidWorks task pane, which I have pinned open at the moment. If you take a look at the SolidWorks task pane, we have here also a tab for SolidCAM. So everything now is right in front of your eyes when you open up the program in the SolidCAM tab. You can start new, open, browse. You can see a tool library manager over here. You can even have your help over here, and you can open and close it, and it'll always remember your the last way you had this opened. So this is the way I had it open last time, and this is the way it's opening up now. We also have our SolidCAM settings here. I like to keep that open. But we've also added another thing over here, which is very, very helpful. We've added an automatic list of your recent parts. So your recent parts are always right in front of your eyes, so you don't have to always go to open recent parts or anything like that. You also have, of course, you also have your regular browse, so you can see your last parts visually over here. Now, one of the other things we've done is, let me just open up for a moment a SolidWorks part. I'm going to open up a part, say this part over here. And what you'll note inside our SolidWorks manager is we also have a SolidCAM manager automatically opened over here. Now, we don't have a project started yet, but this tab is here already. You can also start a new part from here. You can also open a new part from here, and you can also browse parts over here as well. There are people, for instance, that I know that do not like to work with the SolidWorks task pane at the side, but this will always be available. Now, there's one other function I'd like to show you as we get started. Just a moment. Okay, just a second. Okay. Another thing that we like to show you is as follows. Let me close the part. And I would like to go into my SolidCAM settings, and I'll keep this pinned open for now. If I go into my SolidCAM settings, we've added an option in CAM part called Create New CAM Project when opening a CAD part. If I were to open it up, what that would do is that when I open up a CAD part, just like I did before, it'll automatically start the new CAM project if I want. And I can have it either for milling, mill turn, or turning. And also, if I go to my automatic CAM part definition, if I turn on my Create Mac 1 position automatically and have everything else done automatically, you'll be able to start your toolpaths almost immediately as you open the part. Let's take a look exactly how this works. I'm going to open up the SolidWorks part, this one over here. And you know, the moment it's opening up, it's already starting a brand new SolidCAM project, including the home position exactly where I have it set inside my settings. And at this point, we are now ready to start our SolidCAM operations. So it's all over here in front of you, ready to work if you want to work this way. Now, of course, I can always turn this off by going into my settings over here, turn that off, and turn it back off any way I want to do that. Okay. Now, let's also take a look over here as well. As I said before, you have also open parts over here and browse for parts over here. We've also added a Save As button over here. Makes it easier to save as. Also, we can close directly from here, and you can go directly to your SolidCAM settings from here as well. Okay. Now, the next thing I'd like to point out is we've added a new option for creating stock. Now, why did we do this? Well, let's actually go into our stock and take a look. Now, many people have used the option of define by box relative to model. Now, this is a really nice option, but it's not as realistic as it should be. Because as follows, Okay, I've created my stock over here, and I've told it I wanted offset extended by 2 millimeters on each side, but I don't know what my actual stock size is. And if I start measuring this afterwards, that doesn't mean that's the actual stock that I have available to me. So I may go back and see into my stock room and see my stock is not really that exact size. Then what I would have to do, I would actually have to start calculating, okay, how much do I need over here to add on? So it would be actually not the proper way to do it. So what we've added now is a new option called stock size. What does stock size do? Now, the moment I click on my part, what it does is it creates a box exactly according to the size of my part, and it'll also show me what's the exact size of the part of the stock at this moment, of the part at the moment. So now I can go into my stock room and I can see, okay, what kind of stock do I have? All right, in my X direction, in my X axis, I'll say, okay, you know what? I see I have 166 is my part. I'm going to cut my stock to 170 millimeters, and I'm just going to write down 170 millimeters. Note the moment I do that, the stock automatically grows on both sides equally. In my Y direction, I see, okay, you know what? In my stock room, I have stock that's 130 millimeters. So I'm going to say, you know what? I'll just put that value in exactly the way I have it. And again, it grows exactly on both sides equally. Now my depth, I see I have 25 millimeters over here. And let's say, for example, in my stock room, I have inch stock that's by inch. And I'll go, so I can just change this over to inch if I want, and say, you know what, this is my inch, and I see that I have stock that's 1.25 inch, 1.25 inch stock. So I just put that value in. So now I see the exact stock size that I need. And it's exactly what I'll have also when I do my operations. Now, I did mention before that everything is equally spaced. Now, if we take a look at the top view, we can see it's actually spaced both in the X and Y. However, if I take a look at my Z direction, it's also equally spaced. And I may say to myself, you know what? I only want 1 millimeter over here. So if I go a little further down over here, as you see, I can offset it instead of equal as showed over here. I can say my X plus should only be 1 millimeter. And what happens is my box automatically moves down. I still have my box size, but now it's placed exactly the way I want to have it. Okay. Now let's get on to our next option. And this is the part that's really fun. We've added, if you've noticed on my right-hand side, something called drag and drop templates. Now, what does that mean? That means I can take a template exactly the way what these words say. I can take it and drag it to my part. And I'm going to explain also some rules as I go along how this exactly works. So let's just first start taking a template. And the first thing I like to do is take a face mill operation and put it on my part. So I'm looking at my operation templates. And by the way, these are regular templates that you have in your template list, templates that you have created. And I'll talk about some of the tips about how you should have these templates also inside over there. Okay, let's say I want to take a face mill operation and put it on top. So I'm just going to take my face mill template and just drag it to the top of the part. And you'll see that it'll automatically create a new operation. You can see it over here as well with the toolpath on top. Now, If, let's say I want to do an eye machining operation in this area over here. So what I'm going to do now, let me just uncheck this for a moment. I'm going to say take an eye machining operation and drag that to this surface. And what's happening now, it's actually creating an eye machining operation on that surface. And we have it exactly the way I have it set inside my template. Pocket operation, no problem. Take a pocket operation, drag it to this surface over here, and I have a pocket operation. Drag it to this surface over here, another pocket operation. No problem at all. Now, what happens if I want to have, let me just delete what I did over here for a moment. Let's say I want to have a pocket operation on this surface over here. And on this surface, I also want to have it here, over here, on here, on here. Now, if I drag this to this surface, it's already going to create an operation for that surface. But I want to have all of these inside one operation. The way we do that is simple. When I take this template and start dragging it, I'm going to my keyboard now and holding my control button. Now, all I'm doing now is just letting go of my mouse and clicking here while I'm still holding my control button on my keyboard. The moment I finish, I'm going to let go now of my keyboard, and it's going to create now an operation with all of those surfaces as the geometry for that operation. Now, you've also noticed that every single time I touch the surface, it created the operation according to this home position. How does it know to do that? The rule is very simple. When you touch a surface, it creates the operation that is on the home position that is exactly where the Z is perpendicular to that surface. So now my next question. I only have one home position over here. And let me open up my coordinate system manager. What if I want to have, say, a face mill operation on this surface over here? So let's see what happens if I do drag a face mill operation or any other operation to that surface, and I don't have a home position for that. Well, let's take the face mill operation and drag it to this surface. What happens is it will automatically create a new home position that is perpendicular to that face and put the operation there as well. Okay, now, if I'm already here, let's talk a little more about these templates itself. Every single template that I have here, I can right-click over here. I can do show and edit, or double-click on them, and you can see what's inside the template, and I can also do editing. So, for example, if I have my pocket operation, my pocket template over here, double-click on it, and I can see I have my tool inside over here. I can see exactly what tool I have over here. And one thing I also want you to note is that I have my levels set by target. The reason for that is that when I do this, the moment I drag it to the surface, the upper level will automatically be according to the target. Okay? There's a little trick I'm going to show you a little later on also. That's going to be in our SP2 version. But let's take that into account, just to show that. Now, besides our regular templates, we also can use process templates as well. But before I go to there, let me just show you one thing while I have this part open, something that we've also added into our drag and drop templates, but not only drag and drop templates, we've also added, and this is going to be available in SP2, whole wizard process. So if I were to open up my whole wizard process, I can go to my tapped holes and drag the process onto the tapped hole. And it'll automatically create the operations from that processes for those whole wizard holes over there. And the same is true for counterbore holes, countersink holes, all of the whole wizard processes. Okay, now as I mentioned before, we also have the option for process templates. Now to show this, I'm going to open up a different part. So let me just close this part. As you see, I can close it directly from here. And I'm going to open up a different part. Let me see. We will use this part over here. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to put a face mill operation on the top of this part. And I'd like to do a pocket recognition on the rest of the part. So if I go to my process templates, you can see every single time I click on a process template, I can see exactly what's inside that particular template, that process template. And I have one over here called face and pocket, which is a face mill and a pocket recognition. So I'm just going to take it and drag it to the part. And it's going to do exactly what I wanted it to do. It's going to create two operations over here, exactly what I had in my process template, showing the face mill and the pocket recognition. Okay. Now, what happens if I were to do this with HSS? Okay, because HSS has a little different issue that we have to deal with. So let me open up a different part and we'll see what the difference is. Now, if you remember before, I had mentioned that when we drag and drop a template, it'll automatically create the operation that on the home position that is perpendicular to the face that I touched. But with HSS, we can't do that. Why not? Let's say I want to put the operation on this face. So which home position am I going to use? Am I going to use this one here? I can also have one going maybe in this direction. So which home position do I use? So what we've done in HSS is as follows. First, let's take the HSS that only needs a specific face. I'm going to take it and drag it to this face over here. The moment that happens, it'll prompt me to pick the home position. So if I have my coordinate system over here, I can say, which coordinate system do I want to work on? Or I can actually go and create a new home position. The moment I click on OK, it'll create the operation for that position over there. Now, I would like to know one more thing. Let me just delete this for a moment. In SP2, which is the next version that's coming out, we've also added an option inside for drag and drop templates on coordinate system. Because say, for example, let's say I have many different faces and many different HSS operations, and I always want them to go to a specific home position. I don't want to always be prompted for that. So if I were to open up my coordinate system as shown over here, you'll see right now it's set as default to automatic coordinate system. But if I want, I can say, I want to pre-select my home position, and I can do that over here. So now, if I were to take my HSS operation and drag it to here, it will not prompt me anymore because it already knows to go to that position, and it'll create the operation. Now, what happens if I were to drag and drop an HSS operation that needs more than just a surface, but also needs an additional geometry? For example, if I have HSS parallel to curve, I may need a surface, but I also may need that curve. What happens if I drag that operation, that template? I'll drag it to this surface over here. Now, since I have it now, this part over here, it'll start creating the operation, but then it'll open up the operation because it's still not completed and I still need another edge. All I have to do now is just open this up, create my chain geometry, the one that I need, that particular line, accept it, and just do save and calculate. And then I have my home position. Now, the same is true also for HSR, HSM. For example, if I were to do HSM, the rule in HSM, and let me put it back in automatic coordinate system as follows. With HSM, if I drag it to a surface, a flat surface, that has already a home position on it, it'll create that automatically. It'll go according to that. If I drag it to any other surface that does not have a home position, it'll also prompt me to choose a home position. Right now I'm going to drag it to this surface, HSM, say contour roughing, or this surface, the flat surface, where I already have a home position. And as you can see, it'll create my HSM operation over there. Okay. Now, there's one more option that we have here now. And this is extremely powerful. Now, and this, in fact, I'm going to, when this opens up, I'm actually going to close my templates. So I'm not even going to use my templates. You'll note in this part, if I go to my coordinate system manager, I only have one home position. Now, you see I have a face mill operation, which I already created beforehand, regular operation, and I have an eye machining operation over here. And you see the eye machining operation is working inside that pocket. Now, I'd like to also create now another eye machining operation for this pocket. Now, normally what I would have to do is I have to create another home position. I would have to then copy this operation, copy paste or save and copy and then create everything I need to. But we've added something now that's extremely powerful. If I were to go to my CAM manager, I can go to my operation and take the part itself and drag it to that surface. Nothing to do with templates. I'm just taking an operation and dragging it to a different surface, and it's creating the operation inside that, on that face, according to that new geometry and according to that depth. And it also, in this particular case, created a new home position. The same thing over here. Take this, and I can go on and create those operations. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these two operations that I just did. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these operations, the face mill and the eye machining, and I'm going to drag it to this surface, and you'll see it'll create both of the operations. The face mill being on top over here, because it automatically goes to the top of the target, and the face mill, the eye machining operation, going to that surface because that's the surface I touched. And I can continue taking these and dragging it to over here as well. This, by the way, as I said, this will be in Service Pack 2 also. Now, Okay, so now let's continue on down. Excuse me. Let's go now to some of the new options we have inside 2.5D. I'd like to open up a different part. And I'm going to open up this part over here. Okay. Excuse me. Now, what we've added inside here is follows. You'll note that I have two setups. My setups in this particular case are as follows. Just go to my configurations. I have one setup with these clamps over here, and my second setup on my other configuration with these clamps moved to the side over here. Okay. Now, let's open up the operation that I have over here, and we'll take a look at some of the new options we've added in here. First of all, we have our geometry, which we all know, that we've had before. And you can see my geometry over here. Now, when I'm inside an operation, you'll see that I can always see my geometry now if I want. In our settings, this can be turned off, and I'll show that to you in a few moments. But my geometry will always be visible to me as even when I'm inside the operation. We've also added an option here called Fixture Collision Protection. You'll note that my geometry is actually going through the clamps. But we've added the option of Fixture Collision Protection. Now, we've also added an option here, cut only rest material. I have that checked off, but I'll explain that to you in a few moments, how that works and what it actually does. But just note for now that this is marked. Okay, so I have here Fixture Collision Protection. If I were to run my simulation now, and let's do this in Solid Verify. Okay. You'll see the following. The moment it starts cutting, it's actually avoiding the fixtures, the clamps, as shown over here. It works its way around the clamps. Even though my geometry went over here, it worked its way around the clamps, excuse me, because we had now the option of fixture protection. Now, I'm going to close this now. And remember now, I said in my second setup, and if I show this to you again, I have my clamps from this side over here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this first operation that I created and copy it. And after this next setup, I'm going to paste it after that setup. Now, why did I do that? Let's take a look at the operation again. And I just want to remind everyone now of this option, which I mentioned before. Cut only the rest material. What cut only the rest material does is very simple. It looks exactly where the material is left over, and it'll only cut in those areas. So I didn't create a new operation. All I did was I copied and pasted it, and I'm just going to just calculate and nothing else. If we take a look at the toolpath, you'll see that it's only in that area. Let's take a quick look at the simulation again. And again, using Solid Verify, you'll see we have our material that's left over here. And it's only going to machine that area. Now, one other option I'd like to mention that we also have, that rest material always also works, and this, what I'm mentioning now, is true from Service Pack 2. Let me just go over here. I'd like to add a new operation. Let me delete this one because I don't really need this anymore for now. I want to add an operation inside this area over here. So I'm going to do my pocket operation over here. I'm going to create now a geometry around that area over there. Regular chain geometry. Okay? And I'll choose a tool for the moment. Okay, take the first tool that I have over there. And if I go to my levels, I'm only going to go down now to this surface. In other words, I'm going to machine this entire area, but only up until this surface. I'm going to step down every 5 millimeters. Do save and calculate. And of course, it does what we expect it to do. It's machining this area over here up until that surface. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do save and copy. But wait a minute, let me go back over here. And let me mark cut only rest material. Well, at this moment, it's not going to do any different to what I did before. It's going to do exactly what it did before. Now let me do save and copy. Remember, I have cut only rest material. And I'm going to change my geometry. I'm going to make a new geometry that's going to be at the bottom over here. Now, when I go to my levels, note my upper level is by target. My depth is at 30 millimeters. But because I have cut only rest material, when I do save and calculate, it's only going to cut from this surface down because it sees there's no material left over here. So it's only cutting from this surface down. Now this is true from Service Pack 2. Now, this fixture protection that I mentioned before is true not only in pocket operation, but it's also available inside pocket recognition. If I were to open up a different part, say this one over here, okay? Excuse me. If we take a look at this part, you'll see I have my part over here, okay? And my stock around the part. You can see it's full over here. If I were to go into my pocket recognition operation, which I have here already, you'll note that I have fixture collision protection. So if I were to run my simulation now, solid verify, you'll see that's going to machine around the clamps and not gouge any of the clamps at all. And in this particular case, I had it set to give me 2 millimeters of clearance outside of the clamps itself. Now, let's go into our next option that we have inside 2.5D. We've made now major enhancements also inside our drilling operation. If I were to open up the drilling operation, we'll take a look at our geometry first. You'll see that our geometry in this particular case are all of these holes, including holes that are underneath the clamps. And we have these holes here, which if I were to actually check later on, you'll see that these are less than 2 millimeters away in distance from here. So we'll note that for now. Now, I have my tool, which is the drill that I need. Now let's go into my levels, and this is the first area where we've made an enhancement. You'll note that my milling levels, we have something called by updated stock. When I have it by updated stock, my upper level is automatically taken. In other words, since I machined already down to this floor, my upper level in this particular case will automatically be that floor. Now my drill depth is taken from the part upper level. Now, besides this option, if I were to go into my technology, we've also added some enhancements over here as well. For example, fixture collision protection. And I want to keep that fixture the clearance of 2 millimeters. Now, in addition to that, there's one more really cool thing that we've added. Something called links between the holes. Now, we've added an option called shortest distance. In other words, I wanted to go from one hole to the next in the shortest possible distance. If we take a look at our simulation now, let's see what actually happens. And I'm going to do this one step at a time using Solid Verify. You'll note the following. My first step will go down, and it's going down all the way to this surface, and now it's going to start drilling. When it comes back up, it's only coming up to just above that surface and going directly to the next hole. It's going to drill there. Now note, when it comes up, this time it's going to go all the way up because there's a clamp in the way, and then move across on top to the next hole. Now it's going to go down to that upper surface over there. That's the upper level over there. And again, it's going to go now directly to the next hole. Now, after this hole, you'll note there's a wall over here. The wall over here, and it has to go to this next hole over here. So the shortest distance in this particular case, it's going to jump just above that wall and then go back down. Then go directly to the next hole, again jump over that wall. And let me just turn my part around for a second over here so you can see this a little better. Again, going down to the next hole and to the one after that. Now you note this next hole is in this area over here, and there's a small wall that I have to jump over here. You'll also note that it did not drill into the clamp where there's a hole underneath that. Now it's going again, next hole, and until it finishes that entire part. Now, what happens if I do the following? I'll take this first operation that I have over here. I'm just going to suppress it. You'll note that my drilling operation, since, if you remember correctly, it was set for by updated stock, is now needs to be just recalculated. If I recalculate this now, you'll note that my tool pass, and I'll run a simulation again, this time it's going to start from the top of the surface and coming back up to the top, and again avoiding the clamps. Okay. Now, let me go to my next part. And again, what I'm going to be showing you now, just a second, something called gouge protection, 3D model gouge protection. Now, if we take a look at this part, very simple part. I'd like to put a pocket operation on that floor. Now, if I were to use that geometry, which I'm going to use, we have a problem with these ledges over here, because these ledges are in the way of that tool pass. And this is not a part of the fixture. This is actually part of the target itself. So if I were to go into my pocket operation, create my geometry, that particular face over there, and I'll go just further down, you'll note we have here something called 3D model gouge protection. This will automatically protect the target, and I can even offset it from the target itself, so it's not even to touch those ledges itself. Say, for example, 0.3 millimeters. So wherever that edge crosses a part of the target, it will avoid it. So let's actually take a look what it's doing. I'm just going to add a tool quickly. Okay. And, of course, I'll make sure my depths are set correctly. Save and calculate. If we take a look at the top view, you'll see that it's automatically going around those ledges. And this is because we've added the option of 3D model protection. If we take a look at my simulation Solid Verify, you'll see that as well. Just push it to the side over here, run my simulation, and you can see it's just going to work its way, avoiding the actual target itself. Okay, now I still have a few more moments, and before I go into questions, I'd like to show one other general enhancement. And this, I'll show it to you, and I'm actually going to use your participation to prove a specific point. Let me just go into my settings now. And if I were to go to synchronization, we have added a new option here called Create New CAM Parts with Optimized Geometry Database. Optimized Geometry Database, I'm not going to go too much into details because it's a little complicated, but just let's say this. If I had a part previously to SolidCAM 2018 that had many, many surfaces, the pain of the user was that opening a part of such or creating geometries would always take a long time. And that was because of the way we used to create those geometries, retagging them. But we've optimized the way we've created those geometries. And to show how this works, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open a specific part twice, and we're going to look at our watches for a moment, okay? And this is where everyone's going to help me. Okay, so I'm going to open up that particular part. And I'm going to first start with a part that looks like this. In a moment, you'll see it. Now, the moment I click on open, I'd like everyone to look at their watches, and we'll see exactly how long it takes. Now, this is the old way first of how the tag works. We'll start now, okay? Now, this will take a few moments. This will also give me a chance to relax my voice. Right now, we're already at 15 seconds. We can go along as we go. And for me, it's relaxing because I'm just doing a demonstration. But the user or anyone programming would be sometimes frustrated with a part that takes this long to open. And we're already at 35 seconds, and the part is still not open. Don't worry, it won't be too much longer, I promise. Now, we'd still be waiting until this would open. We'd be still waiting and waiting. We'd go out, take a walk. I'll be quiet a little. Okay? And we're at 1 minute so far. I hope you're all looking at your watches, not just me. Trust me, this is worthwhile when you see the end result, what I'm going to show you. Okay, at this moment, we're at 1 minute and 15 seconds, not 1 hour, sorry. And stop. We are at 1 minute and 23 seconds. It took just to open up this part. And if you take a look at the part, you'll see there are many different surfaces in here. So this is actually a pretty heavy part. Okay, now the parts are even heavier in here. You have all these operations that we created, and that will make it even heavier. And opening this part would take a long time. Now, not only opening would take a long time, even closing the part, which is what I'm doing now, that would also take, it wouldn't take as long as it did opening it, but this would also take a long time. Now, what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to open up the exact same part, but where the geometries were done by the new optimization. Basically, the exact same part, all the same operations, the same geometries, but they were created with the new optimized way. So we'll just wait for another moment or two for this part to close. And meanwhile, I'll take a quick look at my questions. Okay. Okay, just a moment. This is going to be, see again, this will be frustrating again to the user. And now, let's go ahead and open up, just a moment. Okay. We're going to open up now a different part. We'll go open, the exact same part I said, but this one is using the new tags. Now let's take a look at our watches again, and you'll be pleasantly surprised. We'll start right now. We're opening up the part, and we are finished. 10 seconds compared to 1 minute and 23 seconds. A major improvement, and this will make a lot of the customers, a lot of the users much happier when you're working with heavy parts. Okay, let me go into the questions now. The requirements for templates, for drag and drop templates. Okay, let me close this part again. I'll just close it over here. This is really cool. I can close it directly over here. And the requirements, there's no special requirements. Any template that you create, like you've created before inside your operations, is what you'll see. And I'll give an example of how this is done. Okay? Let me just open up any old part that I have over here. Actually, let me just go into one of the parts that I had before. Okay? Let's say we'll take this part over here. Okay. I'm going to create an operation, say a pocket operation. Okay? Forget about, I'll even create a geometry for now. Say create the geometry on that face. Okay. Now, whatever I want to have marked over here, I'll mark over here. Say I'll have cut only risk material mark over here, model protection, all of that over here. I'll add a tool, which is a good, definitely a requirement for it to be automatic, because without a tool, it won't know what tool to use. And the other thing I'm going to mention is, again, my levels. My levels I'm leaving at by target. Okay? Now, what's also good about the fact that I have cut only risk material is that, as I mentioned before, even if I have this by target, the levels by target, if something was cut away already, it'll start from where there is surface mentioned there. Okay, but let's get back to the template itself. Okay, everything else, I'll set up exactly the way I want my technology done, the way I would do for any kind of template. Okay, this template is good for me. I'm just going to go save my template. Okay? Give it a name. I'll call this webinar 2.5 10 millimeter, whatever. Okay? When I click on OK, let me just go out of the option over here. Okay? If I go to my template list over here, my drag and drop templates, you'll see my template is here. It's already here. Just creating it simply. And then I can just use it like any other drag and drop. Take this, drag and drop it to that surface over there, and we have our operation. So it's just a regular template. That's all it is. Okay. Okay, that's it. Again, this has been recorded, so this will be available later on. And everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you at our next webinar.